Every summer, Americans spend about $1,600,000,000 on mosquito repellents. Sprays, coils, candles, wristbands, machines that plug into the wall. And every summer, most of it works for about 2 hours before you're slapping your arm again. There's a plant that's been sitting in garden centers for decades. Costs $8 and contains an oil that Iowa State University researchers found repels mosquitoes 10 times more effectively than DEET by concentration. Not comparable to, not almost as good as, 10 times more effective at the same dose. The study was presented at the American Chemical Society's national meeting in 2001 and confirmed in multiple follow-up studies since. The North American mosquito repellent market is worth $1,600,000,000 a year, and not one of the companies selling you spray bottles has any interest in you knowing that the answer might be growing in your backyard. But here's the thing, and I'm going to be straight with you about this up front, because it's important. The plant alone sitting in a pot on your porch is not going to do what you want it to do. The reason why is actually the most interesting part of this whole topic. And once you understand it, you'll know exactly what to do and what not to waste your money on. Let's start with what's actually in these plants, because that's where the whole story lives. The plant that outperformed DEET in that Iowa State study is catnip, Nepeta cat aria. The same scraggly herb your cat loses its mind over. The active compound is called nepeta-lactone. It's the essential oil that gives catnip its distinctive smell. What the researchers found is that at 0.1% concentration, nepeta-lactone kept significantly more mosquitoes away than the same concentration of DEET in the same controlled environment. For the same repellent effect, you need 1/10 the dose. That finding was picked up by Scientific American, reported by the American Chemical Society, and then it quietly disappeared from any mainstream conversation about mosquito control. No major repellent brand released a catnip-based product. The compound never made it into the spray bottles on the shelf at Walmart. The DEET repellent market today is valued at around $400 million annually in the U.S. alone. DEET still dominates more than half of all insect repellent formulations on the market. As much as 68% by some industry estimates, and it grows every year. Meanwhile, a catnip plant at a garden center costs $6 to $10. Catnip essential oil concentrated, the real thing, runs about $8 to $15 for a small bottle that will last you a full summer. Now let's talk about why the plant in the pot isn't enough. Because this is the part that most gardening articles get wrong. And it's the part that makes people feel like they've been sold something that doesn't work. When you smell a lavender plant, or a basil plant, or citronella grass, you're smelling the volatile compounds that are slowly evaporating off the leaf surface into the air around you. In a small enclosed space, that can create a mild repellent effect. But outside, in open air, in the yard, on the porch, that concentration of airborne oil is nowhere near enough to meaningfully deter a mosquito that's been tracking the carbon dioxide plume from your breath from 30 feet away. Mosquitoes are not casually strolling past your lemon balm and deciding to go somewhere else. They are locked onto you. The ambient scent from a living plant is not strong enough to override that signal. This has been documented. Researchers at the American Mosquito Control Association tested it directly. Their conclusion was clear. The active compounds in mosquito repellent plants have real repellent properties. But those properties exist in the oils inside the plant, not in the air around the plant. A citronella plant sitting in a pot repels roughly the same number of mosquitoes as a plastic plant sitting in a pot. So why do these plants keep showing up on every mosquito repelling garden list? Because the companies selling you citronella candles, citronella torches, citronella scented coils they benefit from the confusion. As long as you believe the plant itself does the work, you keep buying the branded version at 4 times the markup. And you keep buying it again next summer when it didn't really work. The $1,600,000,000 market depends on you not quite understanding the difference between the plant and the oil. Here's what actually works. And it's straightforward once you know what you're doing. The key is getting the oil out of the plant and onto your skin, or into the air in a concentrated enough form to matter. There are 3 ways to do this, and they range from free to about $15. The first way is the oldest, and it costs nothing. You pick a handful of leaves. Catnip, lemon balm, or lavender work best for this and you crush them in your hands, hard, until your palms are green and fragrant. Then you rub that directly onto your exposed skin, arms, legs, the back of your neck. The oils releasing from the broken plant tissue are at a concentration your skin can actually use. People who work in gardens and do this habitually report real results. The protection window is short, roughly 30 to 60 minutes before the oils dry and dissipate But it's free and it works during that window. One caveat: don't do this with plants you haven't identified properly. Some plant oils cause contact dermatitis. Catnip and lemon balm are gentle. Basil and citronella grass are generally fine for most people, but can irritate sensitive skin. The second way is a simple DIY spray you can make in about 5 minutes and keep in a small bottle for the whole summer. Take witch hazel, a dollar store bottle works fine and add catnip essential oil or lemon balm essential oil at about a 5 to 10% concentration. That's roughly 15 to 30 drops of oil per ounce of witch hazel. Shake before each use and apply to skin and clothing. The witch hazel acts as a carrier and helps the oil spread and adhere. Concentrations as low as 2% have been shown in peer-reviewed research to repel over 70% of mosquitoes for 1 to 4 hours after application. A 5 to 10% formulation in witch hazel gives you that effective concentration with a carrier that adheres to skin. The third approach is for the yard itself, not for your skin. If you want to reduce the mosquito pressure in a specific outdoor area, a patio, a doorway, a seating area the method that actually works is not a potted plant. It's a concentrated oil applied to absorbent materials placed around the space. Take cotton balls or small fabric pouches, saturate them with undiluted or lightly diluted catnip or citronella oil, and place them around the perimeter of the area you want to protect. Hang them in cloth or mesh near seating. Refresh them every few days as the oil evaporates. This creates an actual zone of airborne concentration, not the trace amounts that evaporate off a living leaf. The difference in how it performs is significant. Now, where do these plants fit into your yard if you're growing them? They still belong there, just not for the reason most people think. Catnip, lemon balm, basil, lavender, rosemary, these plants are a production facility. You grow them, so you always have raw material. Crush a leaf on the way to the hammock. Pick a handful before you go sit outside in the evening. Strip leaves into a bowl before a backyard dinner, and set the bowl on the table. The plants are your source material, not your air freshener. Catnip specifically is worth noting because it's almost aggressively easy to grow. It's a perennial in most of the U.S., meaning you plant it once, and it comes back every year. It spreads readily, which some people consider a nuisance. But in a dedicated corner or a container, it stays manageable. It needs almost no attention, handles drought reasonably well. And by midsummer, you have more material than you can use. You can dry it, make oil infusions, or just pick fresh as needed. Cost to establish: one $8 plant or a $3 seed packet. That plant will still be there in 10 years. Lemon balm is worth growing alongside it. It's in the mint family, similarly vigorous, similarly easy. It contains citronella, the same compound family found in citronella grass. At concentrations up to 38% in some varieties. It smells better on the skin than catnip for most people, which is a practical advantage if you're going to be rubbing it on your arms before dinner. Lavender rounds out the three. It's the slowest grower of the group, needs more sun, and takes longer to establish. But a mature lavender plant in its second or third year is producing more flowers and oil than most people know what to do with. Dried lavender bundles hung near windows and doors have a demonstrated repellent effect in enclosed spaces. And unlike the outdoor ambient air problem, a small room is a confined enough space for the concentration to actually build up. Here's what the $1,600,000,000 industry does not want you to figure out. The active compounds that repel mosquitoes are not hard to access. They grow in your yard or they cost $8 a bottle. The reason you're not using them is not because they don't work. It's because the way they work requires a tiny bit of understanding that nobody who profits from selling you DEET spray has any reason to explain to you. DEET, by the way, has a complicated record. It is effective, nobody serious disputes that. But a 2009 study published in BMC Biology found that DEET inhibits acetylcholinesterase, a key enzyme in the nervous system, in both insects and mammals. A medical literature review found 17 documented cases of DEET-induced encephalopathy in children, including a case involving an 18-month-old who had a brief exposure to a 17.6% DEET product and experienced seizures and respiratory distress. A 2025 study in the Journal of Advanced Research found measurable effects on sex hormones and bone health in children and adolescents with repeated DEET exposure. The EPA says it's safe when used as directed. But safe when used as directed and something you want to put on your kids' arms every evening all summer are two different things. People who look at that data and want an alternative are not being irrational. They're being parents. The plants are not a perfect replacement for every situation. If you're in a malaria zone, or dealing with a severe infestation, or you need all-day protection in dense mosquito territory, DEET or picaridin are still the most reliable full-day options. That's just honest. But for an evening on the porch, for the kids playing in the backyard, for keeping the density down around your seating area without a chemical cloud, the plant-based approach done right is genuinely effective and costs almost nothing. Grow the catnip. Grow the lemon balm. Make the spray. Crush the leaves. Use the oil where it actually goes on your skin and in the air around you at a concentration that matters. Not in a pot 3 feet away hoping the breeze does something useful. If you've tried any of these and it either worked or didn't, say so in the comments. The difference between I planted citronella and it did nothing, and I made the spray and it actually kept them off for 2 hours, is exactly the gap this video is trying to close. And if there's a pest or a garden problem you want us to look at next, let us know. There's a pattern here where the cheap old solution keeps getting pushed out by the expensive new one. And there's no shortage of topics.